individuals. But as we know, the Cleveland Clinic left, and it was a great opportunity working for them, but actually as one door closes, another one always opens. And so I took this opportunity to start my own practice. And so I'm really a consulting dietitian. I call myself dietitian on wheels, I guess. I used to travel to individuals' homes and help them clean the clutter out of the cupboard, take them to the grocery store, help them shop healthier. I've since moved into an office location. I have a personal training background, so I do that along with my nutrition, which I think is a nice feature because when you look at the total wellness and well-being of an individual, it's not just the diet aspect. It's really the exercise, the diet, and the whole lifestyle. So when I'm working with my clients, I'm looking at the bigger picture, making sure that their whole lifestyle is working for them and not against them. So I always like to say in my profession I wear many different hats because I enjoy doing many different things. So it's nice that I get to do the fitness part. I teach group fitness classes as well. I do corporate wellness programs. I have a few big corporations here in town that I do programs for. One of my favorite things to do is exactly what I'm doing here today, which is professional speaking and lecturing, because I feel like I can have a bigger impact on the community when I can really reach out to individuals and inspire and motivate them. I also just, as recent as 2012, started a food company. It's called Healthy Concepts Food Company. My product is called BETSY's Best. It's a gourmet nut and seed butter. You might have seen this at the local farmers market. If you haven't seen us there, you'll soon see us on store shelves. We're getting ready to go into Whole Foods and some of the local stores here. And our aspirations are to be a national chain one day, or a national brand one day. And the whole theme around my food line is all functional foods, incorporating things like chia seeds and kale and all these healthy foods that can be not only tasty but healthy for you as well. So as you can see, I wear a lot of different hats, but the most important thing is I'm extremely passionate about what I do. I walk the walk, I talk the talk, I live, eat, breathe nutrition. And I think it's so important for us to really embrace that, because we all can make an impact in our lives. And it doesn't have to be an overnight, change in your diet. A lot of it is just small, simple steps. One of my favorite little taglines to say in my practice is small steps equal big rewards. And if you can just take little things that you can accomplish, small goals that you constantly work on, over time it makes a really big impact in your health. And as I mentioned, you're only given one body in life. Nobody else is going to take care of it for you. You're responsible for your own health and well-being. And one of the physicians that I work with, he likes to use the term squaring off the curve. Have you ever heard that term before? So when you look at your life, from the time you were born to the time you pass, you don't want to have a curve in regards to your decline in health. So when you get to the point of your 70s, 80s, 90s, however long you aspire to live, you don't want to gradually have your body wear down and get sick and have to be in a nursing home and have someone assist you and develop diseases like diabetes and things like that, which do wear away at your organs and your health. As opposed to, does anyone know Jack LaLanne?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So he was active until the day he died. And he was in his best physical health. This is called squaring off the curve. You live to your fullest potential until the day you die. Does that make sense? And I think we all aspire to live our lives like that. And so it takes a little bit of focus, but you know what? It's well worth it. You can never buy back your health. That's one thing I always like to encourage, especially you're down here in Naples and we have a very luxurious lifestyle down here. We eat out a lot, we drink a lot, it's very social down here, but you do have to be very mindful and not get wrapped up in that, and that you still have to take care of your health. One thing that's nice being down here in warm weather and environment year-round is I'm inspired to see so many people so active, out playing tennis and golf. I mean, that's great to be active, but you still have to be mindful about the fuel that you're putting in your body to maintain that activity level until you're not in 90s, just like Jack LaLanne. So to help encourage and give you some ideas and tips that you might be able to instill in your life, I have a handout here that we'll go through. This is one of those nice little handouts that you can put on your refrigerator and say, what would Betsy do? What would she grab as a snack out of this refrigerator? So as I mentioned, these are some tips that, one, I absolutely apply to my life. And you might look through here and take that little pen and check, yep, I already do that. Check, yep. ooh, now this is one I think I could easily apply to my life. And I'll explain why it's important, and I'll try to debunk a lot of the myths that you hear out there. There's so many bad diets. Do they work? Do they not work? And you might be thinking of some questions as I go through this lecture. And please interrupt me at any time. I kind of just want this to kind of be open. And so if you have a question, please stop me, ask the question, because I know a lot of times at the end of the presentation I forget. And then I forget what my question was. So don't hesitate to raise your hand and just ask me a question. So let's kind of talk a little bit about the tips for healthy living. And we'll start up here at the top. And I know when I gave my lecture, and when I was doing the school tours, and I was visiting all these schools, and from everyone from kindergarten all the way into high school, one of the first things I always say is, how many of you in this room eat fruits and vegetables? And they'd be like, oh, and then some of them would be like, eh. Okay, so every lecture since that time, this was 13 years ago that I was doing the school tours, I asked everyone in the room to raise their hand and let me know how many servings of fruits and or vegetables that you eat a day. So how many of you in this room think you eat a cumulative fruits and vegetables at least 5 servings a day? Raise your hand. So those of you who don't have your hand up, does that mean you're eating less than 5 servings? Yeah. Okay. Actually, in regards to this room, that's pretty good, the hands I saw in the air. The average American consumes 1 serving of fruit and or vegetable a day. It's very sad. And the really sad part is our kids emulate our diet. So we as adults aren't setting good examples. Unfortunately, our kids aren't getting those good examples instilled in them as well. The reason we say 5 fruits and vegetables a day, of course we know they're good for us, right? Our moms told us when we were little to eat your vegetables, right? Okay, well I'm standing here as a professional telling you it is extremely important to really put the focus of your diet more on your fresh produce, fruit and vegetables. The actual Cancer Society has a guideline that's very different from the USDA. Does anyone know the number of servings the American Cancer Society recommends a day? It's 7 to 11 servings. So if you're struggling to get to 5 and now you know your new goal is 7 to 11, there's a reason that they've encouraged a larger serving size. And it's mainly because the fact that if you're, I'm a bargain shopper. Get more bang for your buck. You ever heard that term? Okay. If you're looking at your food and you're finding what food is going to give me more bang for my buck in regards to nutrition, it's the fruits and the vegetables. They're the powerhouse of your diet. The reason being is they have more nutrients in the fact of bioflavonoids, antioxidants, which does anyone know what antioxidants are? Probably heard that word. Probably one of the best cell-protecting foods that you can consume because they prevent free radical damage. And guess what free radical damage is? It's the aging process of our cells. The aging process of our skin. So if you want to keep that youthful glow and prevent those wrinkles, it doesn't come from that cream you put on the outside. It actually comes from within. And increasing your fruit and vegetable consumption will make a huge impact not only in your cells and protecting them, but it makes an impact on how you look on the outside as well. So that's another reason to eat those fruits and vegetables. But the American Cancer Society really puts the emphasis on that because of these antioxidants, because of the fiber, which keeps our colons and everything healthy. And because of the fact for weight management, your vegetables have the least amount of calories out of any of the foods on your plate. 25 calories per serving, whereas most of the other products, even your fruits, will have 60 to 100 grams or 100 calories per serving. So you really get more volume for a lesser amount of calories, which really helps with weight management. So your goals now is to put more of an emphasis on fruits and or vegetables. So for example, at every meal, I try to incorporate a vegetable. So it's easy at lunch. You want to look, I see some beautiful salads back there. I see a little fruit tray, so we're going to get our servings in here at lunch. No problem. Dinner's usually not a problem either, because usually at dinner you have a salad or you have some hot vegetable on your plate. Breakfast is where we often miss our vegetables, and a lot of us scratch our heads like, well, I never thought vegetables were a breakfast food. But that's one thing to put a little bit of emphasis on. Now, I'm sure you've heard about smoothies and putting spinach in smoothies or kale. Maybe some of you might do that now. For example, in the morning, this morning I had a little bit of scrambled egg, and I actually would break up spinach and put it in there, some sun-dried tomatoes. Then I take a bowl of fresh spinach greens and put the eggs on top of that with diced avocado. What a wonderful way to start the day. I mean, I will be full until noon because of that nice balance of the vegetables and the protein. So just put a little bit more emphasis on trying to get at least 5 servings of vegetables. If not, you're going more towards 7 to 11 servings a day. Move it to lose it and keep moving. One of my favorite things to talk about is exercise. Being an exercise enthusiast as I am, it is important to incorporate exercise. And not only just exercise, but movement. And I want to really capitalize on that movement. When I say movement, what does that register in your mind?
Walking.
Activities, yeah.
Dancing,
It could be walk, dancing, it could be golfing, it could be really anything. And the reason I emphasize that is because when you look in the day and the cumulative of where you burn your calories, sure, if you go to the gym for a 30-minute walk on the treadmill, jog, or elliptical, whatever, maybe a fitness class, you might burn around 200, 250, maybe 300 calories for that 30-minute ordeal at the gym. But if you look at the day and how many calories you get through movement, you can actually accumulate anywhere from 800 to 1,000 calories being burned just by active movement through the day. I usually wear my pedometer. I have a Fitbit. Has anyone ever heard of those? Yeah? Those are great because it kind of holds you accountable and it keeps track of your steps and makes you aware of the movement that you're getting through the day. So that's one thing when I'm working with clients and they're lacking movement, one thing I encourage them to get right away is something like a pedometer to kind of encourage their steps. But, think of different ways to get extra steps during the day, whether it's parking further away. I'm sure you've heard tips like that. Always take the stairs instead of the elevator. But the thing I like to encourage, because there's a medical reason this is important, is that after you eat your meals, the 15 minutes immediately following each meal, do not sit down, do not lay down and take a nap. Absolutely worst thing you can do. And I'll explain why. As a diabetic educator, I understand the metabolism and the way your blood sugars work and the way your bodies digest food. So let's say we sit down to a lunch and we have a nice Subway sandwich. It has bread on it. Okay, bread is a carbohydrate, right? So as soon as we eat these carbohydrates, our body utilizes carbohydrates as fuel. So that carbohydrate's digested and it turns into what? Sugar. Sugar is what typically feeds our cells. So this sugar has 2 places it can go in our body because it's not supposed to stay in the bloodstream, right? Because that's why we get high blood sugars and that's what causes damage to the organs and inflammation. So the sugar says, okay, I got to get out of this bloodstream. So insulin is secreted and insulin finds that sugar and says, okay, we're going to put you somewhere in the body. You're either going to go, 1, to your muscle to be burned as energy. So every time you contract that muscle, it pulls that sugar and it burns it. Or 2, if it's not going to the muscle, it's going to this guy, which is the fat, which it likes to accumulate closest to the gut, right here, okay? So just think about it. If you eat and you sit, or you eat and you lie down and take a nap, or you get on the computer, you sit and read a book, you sit and knit, whatever it is, that muscle's not moving. And that fat's saying, hey, I'll take you, okay? But if you just, right after that meal, get up, and I'm not saying heavy exercise, I'm saying movement. It could be putting the dishes away, doing a load of laundry, mopping the floor, go for a walk the dog, walk your spouse, walk the mailman. I don't care who it is. You just want to get up and you want to move around. And some of my clients, after dinner, they really enjoy watching their favorite TV program. So they might sit on the couch and I'll tell them, okay, if that's what your plan is, then we need to be smart about this and get your muscles moving even though you're sitting and watching a TV program. So I have them put little hand weights down by their feet. And I'll tell them every commercial is 2 minutes, and within an hour program, that's a 20-minute time span that you can get a workout. That 2-minute commercial, you're going to stand up and do some squats over that couch, pull some of those weights, do some bicep curls, and that muscle's going to say, hey, I'm using that glucose, so it's going to actually lower your blood sugar after a meal. It actually helps aid in digestion, getting a little bit of that movement after the meal. And you know what? You're going to find you have more energy. Have you ever had a meal and you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm so tired? Like that Thanksgiving meal, like, oh. if you actually get up and start moving around and helping your body digest that, you're going to have so much more energy after a meal.
How long do we do that?
Good question, 10 to 15 minutes after a meal. So that's very doable, right? And if you look at the picture of the whole day, that's 45 minutes of movement that you may not have been getting before. So that's going to make a difference in the long term when it comes to weight management. And it's going to especially help those of you that are blood sugar sensitive. So keep that in mind, 10 to 15 minutes of movement, and then just trying to move more through the day. Now when it comes to exercise, these are the new guidelines for exercise. They used to say 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week was sufficient for our health. But that's old information because that's not helpful in today's society because we just don't move as much as we used to move in the past. And our bodies are not quite as healthy as it used to be in the past because we're such an epidemic with our weight. The new guidelines are 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week for basic health. Now, if your goal is weight loss, guess what the goal is now? 60 to 90 minutes at least 5 days a week. And if you have blood sugar issues or diabetes, my guideline for you, 7 days a week. The reason being, exercise is so powerful at lowering your blood sugars. It's just as powerful as taking that diabetic pill you might take every day. The days you don't exercise, your blood sugars will be higher that day. Because I just explained what happens. That muscle loves to use glucose, sugar, and it'll help cool it out of your bloodstream. It's fascinating. I worked with this one gentleman. He came in to see me. He had a hemoglobin A1C of like 14, which, and you know what those numbers mean, but that means his average blood sugar was 400 to 500, which is extremely high. I mean, all of his cells were being damaged. He was starting to get neuropathy. He was vision issues. Kidneys were starting to have some issues. And I remember working with him, and he was a heavy guy. He was a big, like, 6'2" guy. And, he was one of those, like, I will change my diet overnight. He was probably one of my biggest successes. He was just motivated, and I captured him at the right time. I think it took him about 3 or 4 months, but what he would do is after he would eat his meal, he would go in the pool, because that was the only thing that didn't hurt his joints, and he would swim for an hour. And he would test his blood sugars right before he got in the pool, and he would test his blood sugars right after he got out of the pool. He would actually lower his blood sugars by 100 points just by doing that swim. And after a few months of doing this, he called me and moved out to California, and he's like, I just wanted to give you an update, Betsy, of how I'm doing. I've lost over 100 pounds. My hemoglobin A1C is under 6%, which is incredible. And he attributed it all to just being mindful about his activity after meals and his exercise. He didn't do a day without exercise, and then he just changed his diet.
What was he consuming to have all that sugar?
Oh,
Was he
soft
putting sugar in the
drinks
tea
and
and
like
coffee?
he was drinking salt. I mean, think of like a trucker's diet. That was like his diet. I mean, it was fast food. It was heavy meals, carb heavy. I mean, he had really the worst diet I probably had to work with. But I mean, he did an overnight change because he knew if he continued on the path that he was on, he was going to lose a lot of his organs.
Yeah, I always thought that, my mother always said, you're not very swimming.
Right. You don't want to do heavy exercise. I mean, in this case, this man that's what worked for
It was a
him.
slow stroke.
He did, yeah. It wasn't. You don't want to go out and run a marathon after eating a heavy meal because a lot of your blood gets pulled into your stomach for digestion. But actual movement, small movement, is not a big deal after a meal. If anything, it's going to help you digest the food as opposed to inhibiting it. So the exercise, hopefully those give you some new guidelines to work towards. Of course, anytime you start a new exercise program, do a consult with your physician, making sure that it's safe to exercise, and start gradually into your program until you can accomplish the goals that are set for you. Okay, reading nutrition labels, I always think this is very important. Actually, in all of the diabetic classes I used to teach, I would make everyone take an oath with me as soon as they sat down. Say, I would not buy a food product based on what it says on the front of the box. I will only buy a food product based on what it says on the nutrition label. And the reason being is there's a lot of marketing that goes into why consumers buy products. What can they put on the front of the box that captures their eye? They even found that the color green signifies health and wealth. So you ever see those companies like Healthy Choice has a green box, Nutri-Grain. There's nothing nutritious or grain about a Nutri-Grain bar. So it's marketing, and they're smart. Really the truth comes in the label. But even more so, what I'm learning now is it's not just the nutrition label. You need to actually look at the ingredients. If anything, that's where I look first, because I want to see what I'm eating. Is it processed? Is it refined? Are they adding hydrogenated oils? Is it food coloring? Like, what is in that food product? Yeah, a lot of times I call this food that we buy packaged edible material. Because you look on the back and there's so many ingredients, you can't pronounce half of them. Most of them are preservatives. I'm surprised with as much preservatives we eat, our bodies actually age.
Right.
Somebody heard that the Twinkie can sit on a windowsill for 11 years and not grow mold. It's kind of disgusting when you think of it. Yeah, oh yeah. So anyways, I'm just always very cautious shopper. I always read nutrition labels. It might take me a while to grocery shop in a new store.
Do you shop at Publix?
I do. Actually, Publix is coming around, and I'm finding in the Greenwise section they're doing a much better job. I used to have to just go to Whole Foods to buy everything, but nowadays I go to Whole Foods for select things, and I can find a lot of it at sometimes Super Target, and Walmart will have some of these things, and Publix. So it's becoming more mainstream because we are, as a society, becoming finally a little more focused on our health and well-being. And so the grocery stores want to follow suit with the health trend. So Publix is doing a better job. So to help assist you when you do go to the grocery store, if you want to grab my business card, on the back, just to keep it handy, I provided some tips for you. So this is what, as a dietitian, I would look for and focus on a nutrition label to determine if that product is healthy. So per serving, so make sure you always look at the serving size. Is it a half a cup or half of the container? It should be relatively around 200 calories or under per serving. So some and most food products would fall in that category. Some of the things that come up online that may not, like granola. Some of those granolas, now think about this, for calorie per volume, a quarter of a cup of granola can be 250 calories. That's a lot for something that little that's not really going to fill you up. So is it worth it? So that's why I put that relation of 200 calories and under per serving. Around 5 grams of fat or under. Now beware of fat-free products. I know in the 90s everything was like avoid fat, but nowadays we want and need some fat in our diet, especially the monounsaturated fat. When you go fat-free, what happens, they take the fat out, but what do they put back in?
Sugar.
More sugar or more salt, which are two epidemics, high blood pressure and diabetes. So we really don't want to go fat-free unless you know it's a really good product. So some of them are all right, but not all. The biggest one, and the one I always like to bring a lot of attention to, is the sodium intake. You want to look for products, especially anything that might be processed or canned, that has about 300 milligrams of sodium and under. Okay. The reason I want to point this out is not only the processed and frozen foods are high in salt, but when you go out to restaurants, it's incredible the amount of sodium that is in some of these products. I do a monthly newsletter. If any of you would like to sign up for it, you can go to my website and just register for my free newsletter. I haven't sent this month's newsletter out yet. I'm going to do it when I get back to the office today. So when you go home, sign up for my newsletter. I'll send you out this month because I have a really nice article that's talking about salt and how it's hidden in so many of our restaurants. And I actually highlighted some restaurants that are local here to Naples, and you will be floored at the amount of salt in some of these meals. For example, Seasons 52. Touted as this very healthy restaurant. When it first came in town, I'm like, oh wow, finally a restaurant that's focused on portion control. And I get their menu. I said I would like the low sodium menu because they actually have a low sodium menu. 4 items on that entire menu I had to choose from. I'm like, really? There's only 4 items that are less than 700 milligrams of sodium. So I went on their website, because I was curious then, and I was selecting some of the items that I really wanted to order. I'm like, oh my God, a salad has over 1,200 milligrams of sodium. Some of their entrees were closer to 3,000 milligrams of sodium. And think of their portions. The reason these restaurants salt the food so heavily, if you think about it, where does their biggest profit come from? ding, 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 ding. And when there's salt, you're thirsty. So a lot of times it's one reason the restaurants will salt is because they want you to drink more. Another one is because our taste buds have become so accustomed to a saltier diet that that's what they feel that people are asking for. So be very careful when you go to restaurants. The salt is hidden in the salad dressings. Panera Bread, for a good example, there's not a single menu item on there, that, like sandwiches, that are under 1,000 milligrams of sodium, including their children's menu. So watch what you're feeding your kids. Because the bread itself, some of the breads, I think it's, I'm trying to remember if it's the Chabad bread, has about 600 milligrams of sodium in the bread alone. The cheese adds another couple hundred. The lunch meat probably is where it gets up to 1,000. It can be very high. So it adds up quickly. You know, it's not only the soups, it's the sauces, the salad dressings, you know, the little additives that might be put on. A lot of times they will salt behind the scenes, so if you ask them not to salt the vegetables and things like that, hopefully the chefs will accommodate you. But just be very, very careful when you eat out. And the reason I bring it up is it's not just because high blood pressure and hypertension is an epidemic. But when you're watching and trying to manage your weight, has anyone ever noticed you go out to eat at a restaurant and you come back and you're like, man, my rings are like, well, you know you have a lot of salt in that meal. For example, in this newsletter I'm sending out, I have a margarita. You know, they salt the rim. You know, a margarita has over 1,000 milligrams of sodium. Just in your drink, and that's not including the meal and the chips and the salsa that you had. So a lot of times you're consuming your daily needs, if not double your daily needs, in one meal, just the dinner. So imagine what that does to your weight. Not that it causes you to gain weight, but you're retaining now all this fluid on your body, which then is harder for your heart. You know, so it's a lot of other health concerns that roll out with that besides just hypertension. So really do. I'm sorry, I really got off at a tangent here on the salt. But really, really, really watch out for the salt. Not only in the nutrition label, but when you're dining out. Sugar, you want to look for products that have about 8 grams of sugar and under, specifically when you buy things like granola bars and cereals where they can have a lot of hidden sugar in there. Fiber is probably the most important thing on this label. You want to look for products that have around 3 grams of fiber or more. And I caution you as a buyer, because remember I had to kind of take that over from me. That you don't buy a product based on what it says on the front. So Nutri-Grain granola bars are a perfect example. It says grain, so you think, wow, there's a lot of whole grain in here, but you look on the back and it has like 1 gram of fiber. So where's the grain? You know, another perfect example is the Ritz cracker. They have the white traditional Ritz, but then they have their wheat Ritz. Has anyone ever looked at that or ever bought the wheat because you thought it was healthier? If you look on the back, the nutrition facts are exactly the same. There's no wheat in that product. They use the white flour and they take this little dusting of these little brown flecks and sprinkle it over the top and call it wheat. If you need a wheat cracker, buy a Triscuit. Triscuits literally have 3 ingredients. Whole wheat is 3 grams of fiber, so you know it's something that has a better intake of fiber. So just read those labels, do look at the ingredients, be a little bit more nutrition savvy when it comes to label reading. Carbohydrates I put on there for my diabetics who are carbohydrate counting. Basically 15 grams of carbohydrate is considered 1 serving. So if you are a carbohydrate counter, you use that as a guide.
I just wanted to ask you about sushi and salt. Like I know, like if we get sushi, the rice and that seaweed, is that high in sodium?
Actually, the sushi itself, the sashimi, the protein doesn't really have a lot of salt. The seaweed itself doesn't have that much. Nothing significant. The rice doesn't. It's the soy sauce. Woo! And the wasabi. Kills you, and even maybe a little bit in that ginger. But what I do, because I love sushi, I will ask for rice vinegar, not the seasoned rice vinegar, just the plain rice vinegar, and then I'll take a little of the soy sauce and put a couple drops in it, just to give some soy flavor, but you don't have nearly the amount of salt that you would have from the soy sauce.
What about Bragg's amino acid, like soy sauce?
Bragg's amino acids, you can certainly use that. It has a lot less sodium. It doesn't quite taste exactly like soy, but it does give that feel and appearance and slight taste, so that's something you can absolutely use as a substitution.
Is that a soy product?
Bragg's Aminos is
I think it has some soy.
I think it does
I
have
think
some
it
soy in
has,
it.
it's a rice
Yeah.
product
I think
mostly.
Well, it is,
I don't know. I'm not certain, but I thought
It
it
has
I think
soy
it
in
does.
it. Yeah, I thought it did have a little soy
Maybe
in
some
it.
soy.
I think it has soy in it. I'm almost
It
certain it
could.
does. So if you're avoiding soy, then that would be something you would want to maybe not use and just maybe stick with rice vinegar instead. So. All right, one of my favorite ones to talk about is don't drink your calories. It's just an easy way to incorporate a lot of calories without feeling full. You know, a perfect example is juice. And a lot of people, I was thinking, grew up drinking juice, thinking juice is healthy for us because it's loaded with vitamin C and whatnot. But when you look at it from a calorie standpoint, I always like to use this as an example. If you were to make fresh squeezed orange juice, how many oranges would it take, our nice juicy Florida oranges, would it take to make a glass of orange juice? Probably 3, 4, depending on what type of orange fruit you get if it's a juicy one. So if I were to peel out 4 oranges, put them on a plate, present them to you for breakfast, and you were to try to eat the 4 oranges, would you then be hungry to eat the rest of the breakfast after that? You'd be full because of the fiber in the orange rinds and everything, or peel, or not peel, but the membranes. But if I were to squeeze that juice, you could actually down that glass of juice and polish off an entire breakfast, right? Right. So it's just not worth it to drink the calories, especially alcoholic calories. Be very careful because that's where your calories can really add up quickly. Because of the mixers, the sugar, you know, some of the margaritas and martinis can add anywhere from 300 to 500 calories per drink. So if you're going to have a drink, stick with simple wine or just a simple alcohol with maybe club soda or just water. And keep it at 1 drink for a female, and for males, no more than 2 drinks a day. That's generally what we would recommend as a guideline.
And what about if you squeeze fresh oranges? What about the juice? Is that
You still don't want to do it. I'd rather you eat a fresh orange as opposed to drinking the juice. Because the fiber in that membrane is going to provide you more benefit to slow the glycemic index, which means the release of sugar goes slower into your bloodstream, which is good for especially diabetes or anything like that where you might be blood sugar is concerned.
What about juicing, like using the oranges for juicing?
If you're going to do an actual juice where you have a juice machine, you're adding vegetables, keep your juices more vegetable-based. Very little fruit. Like for example, I don't own a juicer, I do a Vitamix, but if I were to go to something like Whole Foods and ask for a juice, I actually tell them not to add any apple or banana or whatever, not banana, but apple or whatever fruit they put in, pineapple. I just want straight up vegetables. And you keep the sugar content very, very low on that, and you maximize your nutrients.
How do you sweeten it?
Acquired taste.
It's an acquired taste. Trust me, it took me a while to get there. So I said, okay, half the apple juice, and then, eventually now I go without it all, and I just have to put lemon in. Or sometimes I might have to add some coconut water, which coconut water is very, very low in sugar. If you're looking for an electrolyte replacement, you could do that. It'll add a slight sweetness, but it is an acquired taste.
what's in a banana? You're told to eat a banana every day. What's in a banana?
Bananas are high in potassium, but it's not the only fruit or vegetable high in potassium. It's one of the ones that people really like, and it's an easy one to incorporate in. But I don't agree with ever eating the same thing every single day. I think variety is the key to life. One, so we don't get bored, but from a nutrition standpoint, it gives us a variety of nutrients. So if you just eat bananas every day, you're missing out on other types of nutrients that might be housed in some other fruits or vegetables. So watch those calories. Give your food the attention it deserves. And this is called mindful eating. A lot of us don't pay attention to the foods that we're eating, how these foods make us feel. My thought process when selecting foods is a little bit different than probably the typical person. When I look at foods, I'm always thinking, what is this food going to do for me? Is this food going to give me energy and vitality and make me feel good and full? Or am I going to eat this food and feel tired and sluggish and hungry and cranky? Because foods do that, and a lot of us don't pay attention. Sometimes if you eat a heavy carbohydrate meal like pasta, you feel real tired. So pay attention to how that food makes you feel, because you'll find the diet that's best for you if you just pay attention to what the foods do. and really load up on the foods that actually provide more substantial energy because they're high in fiber, they're high in those antioxidants and bioflavonoids, those foods that actually fuel the body as opposed to deteriorate the body because they're high in processed ingredients or partially hydrogenated oils or too much fat, which just make you tired and sluggish. Snack from a plate, not from a box. I'm sure you've heard this one before. That's mindless eating. A lot of us mindless eat for many reasons. We snack when we're not hungry for many reasons. Maybe it's emotional reasons, boredom, whatever it might be. But if you start paying attention to when your body's hungry and when your body's full, it seems like a very, very simple answer. When you're full, stop eating, right? But how many is beyond that point? Do any of us really truly understand when our body's full? Do you sense that hunger or that fullness signal? Because we've been trained since childhood that there's starving people in Ethiopia, clean your plate, right? We don't waste. You know, I grew up like that. My mom would not let me leave the table. I was such a picky eater when I was a kid. And I remember I was lectured about that all the time, and she hated wasting food. But, you know, I learned it's better in the waste than on the waste, you know? And nowadays we have things called refrigerators. And if you have food left over, just wrap it up, put it back in the refrigerator, and eat it later. So, very important, pay attention. Pay attention to your portions, and that's why on the card I put another section on the bottom that talks about the portion guidelines. And be mindful, because a lot of it is about portion control. And when you eat out a lot, it really skews your perception of what a perfect portion would be because they serve us so much food. So for example, I tell people use your hands as guidelines because your hands go with you everywhere, right? You're not going to be whipping out a measuring cup at a dinner table. So half of your plate should be vegetables. So if you all take your two fists and put them together, visualize that on your plate. Half of that plate should be vegetables. So maybe one fist is the side salad, the other fist might be the hot entree, but try to capitalize half the plate. And when I actually sit down to eat a meal, I eat the vegetables first. The protein second, and then whatever carb last. Because that way, if I'm going to fill up, at least I filled up on the most nutritious of the foods, right? And they have so much fiber in them, they really actually keep you pretty full. A third of the plate should be your protein. So if you look at the palm of your hand, now everyone eats in a different relation to their size. Now I'm a little short petite, so I have about a 3-ounce portion. Some females might have a 4 or 5-ounce portion, and men can sometimes have 5 or 6-ounce portions, depending how big they are. You don't count the fingers, and the thickness of the hand too. You know how many times I've worked with men and they're like, oh yeah, I got a filet mignon. It was only like that big, but it was that thick. Yeah, that doesn't count. So you really watch that. The carbohydrates, again, are about a third of the plate, so that's about 1 fist. So think about that. When you go out to an Italian restaurant, you get pasta. It's a platter of pasta that should be serving the entire table. Your serving of that pasta should be a fist, balanced with a nice salad and a little bit of protein, and then you have a perfectly balanced meal. And then the last one I would say is my thumbs up, and that is your fat. Now fat could be the good healthy fats, which would be things like avocados and nuts and seeds. It could be olive oils, all those good healthy fats. Now I mentioned that the nuts, now, of course, I have a nut butter company, peanut butter, which is another serving of the fat. But think about your portion. A thumb. That's not very big. It's kind of what sits in the center of the palm of your hand. How many of you love nuts? Love nuts. I could just eat nuts all day. But if I sat there and ate handfuls of nuts, think of how many calories I might be consuming. Like a half a cup of nuts is close to 500 calories. It adds up quickly. 1 tablespoon of peanut butter is 100 calories. So you really have to portion control. They're good fats, so I'm not saying don't eat them, but if you're really watching the waistline, that's where calories add up very quickly, is in the fat category. So you want to keep that portion relative to the center of the palm.
So an avocado, which should be the size.
It's a quarter of an avocado is considered 50 calories. An entire avocado has closer to 300 calories. Healthy, absolutely healthy. I mean, I eat avocados a lot. I love them. But my portions are little slivers diced up in little chunks on a salad, or in my egg bowl in the morning, or I might put it in a smoothie. I don't do a lot of it. Now, I break it up during the day, It's not bad. I mean, if you're going to snack on avocado, you're going to eat the whole avocado. I mean, one, it's going to be filling because it's a healthy fat, but that's like 300 calories you just consumed, and you might still be hungry a little bit afterwards. So
You're
just
talking about the
be very
small
careful.
avocados or the small?
I can't imagine the calories in a big one. Ooh.
Could I,
Yeah,
could I
might be.
just ask you? I read an article about having 5 almonds a day.
Uh-huh.
Now, what do you think of that? Apparently, well, my husband read it more than me, and he's been doing these 5 almonds for the last 6 months. Apparently, it wards off also. Is that true?
Well, there's a lot of benefits to not just almonds. I think the almond board was behind that research. That's what these companies do.
And he's been
walnuts-
eating them every day. I said, I don't think so. And
Well,
he said,
it's
no.
not bad. I mean, 5 is a portion of, about 45 to 50 calories, which isn't going to break the bank from any standpoint. And yes, there are benefits to almonds, but there's benefits to all variety of nuts and seeds, and that's where I get hung up on.
Yes.
You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over because you actually are more likely to develop food sensitivity if you eat that way. So what you should do is maybe one day have the almonds rotated with some walnuts or maybe some Brazil nuts or some pistachio nuts, put a variety in there because you're going to get benefits from all of the nuts. Walnuts might have more omega-3s than some of the other nuts. Almonds aren't too bad in omega-3s. They're a good source as well, but I just think the variety is absolutely key.
They should be eaten raw. They shouldn't be salted.
Actually, to kind of debunk that myth there, raw nuts are not digested as well as a roasted or soaked nut. So the enzymes, soaking is really if you're looking more towards a raw diet and the best digestibility, you want to soak them, and you might just soak them anywhere from an hour to 3 hours in water, and you drain the water and kind of let them dry out. The best way, or it's roasted. You could roast them if you like roasted nuts. You just don't want the salt on them.
And you haven't said anything about eggs and cholesterol. What about eggs and cholesterol?
Well, eggs do have cholesterol, although what some of the new research is pointing to is the type of cholesterol from the eggs is not what is influencing our actual overall cholesterol to increase. So we kind of lightened up on our recommendations on the eggs. We used to really tell people with high cholesterol problems to avoid egg yolks. It's not the white, it's the yolk. So what we encourage now is just a moderate amount, no more than 4 yolks in a week. So I think that's a little bit more lenient on the guideline, but really there's a lot of benefits in that yolk, a lot of nutrients. So, I used to in the past only do egg whites, and now I'm incorporating more egg yolks with some little avocado, healthy things like that. Those healthy fats aren't so bad. So what you used to learn in the past about the cholesterol in the yolk is changing. A little more lenient on that.
My mother used to read Edgar Cayce books in the 40s, and in that book, he says 3 almonds a day
Yeah.
to prevent cancer.
The Chinese have been saying that forever. 3 to 5, You just touched on omega-3.
I don't think there's
So
anything
what
wrong with
about
that.
supplements, omega-3 supplements, calcium supplements, vitamin D? That's what they were all talking about.
Yeah, that's a whole lecture in itself. But I won't touch on it. I'm just going to be careful because I like to talk. So, especially about nutrition. So we'll touch on this, and I'll open the floor to some more questions and just leave that handout for you to read at your own home. In regards to supplement, I always turn to food first because I really find your body, for one, it absorbs it more naturally that way. It's not a chemical substance that's been altered in the lab. The other thing is with the supplement industry, you don't necessarily know what you're getting or what other fillers are in there, or if you're actually purchasing something that is a potent enough variety. When it comes to calcium, the new researchers are showing that, and actually all the cardiologists are now cautioning patients against taking calcium supplements because of the fact that they're finding it's increasing plaque buildup in the arteries. And that if you have to take calcium supplement, you should take it no more than 3 times a week and just space it out. Well, I say, of course, food first. One of my
What
favorite
milligrams, 3 times a week? What milligrams?
Well, you don't want to take a dose larger than 500 milligrams at one time, although your total daily intake should be anywhere between 1,000 to maybe 1,500 milligrams, depending on your situation. But chia seeds are one of my favorite functional foods and is a great source of a vegetarian source of calcium. And a lot of people don't think about that. They think, okay, I have to drink milk, I have to eat yogurt, but you have to be careful because dairy can also sometimes be pro-inflammatory to your body if your response is that way. Chia seeds, CHIA, is what grows the hair on a chia pet. Chia. Why I like the chia seeds, because I'm going to touch on two things that you asked about, omega-3s and calcium. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds has as much omega-3 fatty acids as 3 ounces of salmon. It has as much fiber as 5 slices of bread. And it has as much calcium as a glass of milk. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds.
What do you do with
Chia seeds, they're actually, it looks like a poppy seed. It's tiny, it's black. It's actually in my nut butters because I had to use a functional food. It's one of my favorite functional foods because it's such a nutrition powerhouse. It can be, you don't have to grind it like a flaxseed. It has a much better shelf life. It doesn't have to be stored in the fridge or the freezer. It can be sprinkled on, and that's how I use it. I sprinkle it in my eggs in the morning. I sprinkle it over salads. I put it in smoothies. I make chia puddings. I bake with it. I put it in salad dressings. You can do anything with it. It actually thickens products. You can use it instead of cornstarch. You can thicken sauces and things like that with it. It's just a wonderful superfood. If you haven't heard of it before, Publix now carries chia seeds. So
It doesn't change it to.
no, what I said is it does thicken. So think of a tapioca pearl. When you submerge this little seed in water, it absorbs 12 times its weight in water. So it actually gets this clear coating on the outside and kind of reminds me of a tapioca pearl. The only problem with chia seeds is they get stuck in your teeth. See, I carry floss with you. But they're a wonderful superfood. It has a lot of great benefits because it does provide more omega-3s and calcium.
It fills you up too.
It fills you up. It's high in fiber. It's great for blood sugar management. It's great for athletes. I tell them to soak their chia seeds in coconut water because it's natural electrolyte before they go out for long runs, especially in this heat in Florida. So great superfood. So with the supplements, I just always say to be very, very careful. If it's something that's recommended by a doctor because there's something lacking in your diet, look for the food sources first and then take the supplement just to supplement what else you can't get in your diet.
Can you just touch on magnesium? Because I heard that's like, the ultimate importance for your body.
Well, our body
Your
needs,
moods and everything.
absolutely needs magnesium. I don't know if people tend to be more magnesium deficient, if it's because they're not eating foods rich enough in magnesium. I don't know why there's been so much emphasis put on magnesium because there's a lot of other minerals in our body that have very important roles as well. Again, I don't know if some company's backing this and putting all this information out there about magnesium, but if you eat a pretty balanced diet, you're probably going to get a substantial source of your natural sources of magnesium. So I don't think you need to take an additional magnesium supplement unless you find that you are deficient or for some reason your body's not able to metabolize and absorb some of that magnesium. But yes, it's been shown to help with mood, to help with a lot of things that it can help with. So I just say look for the food source if you're looking for more magnesium.
One question about organic. Shop all your produce organic. Is that important?
I think it's very important. Actually, it was funny. I was watching the news this morning. And they had a little segment on what we call the Dirty Dozen, and should you buy organic or not? Because as we know, organic is very expensive. It's kind of the new trend now. Everyone's buying organic. And what I say is, look, okay. The reason to buy organic is for a couple reasons. One, I'm really concerned about the pesticides and residues that are being sprinkled all over these, crops just to keep the pests away. But two, buying organic prevents you from getting anything that's genetically modified, which is kind of the new
what's the
trend
story? 'Cause
word.
they don't tell you any though. That was my question.
Yeah, it's hard because we have consumed so much of this genetically modified food through the past few years, not even knowing it. This is all due to Monsanto and everything that's been going on there. So yes, there's been a lot of light shed on this and what is happening to our food crops, especially the soybean and the soy and the corn, which are the two highly genetically modified. So now it's such a movement now. Whole Foods by 2015, every product in the store has to be GMO free. So when you buy organic, you know it is GMO free. So that's one nice benefit. But our fruit crops generally aren't GMO products anyway. It's mainly our corn, soybean, cotton seed, cotton and things like that. So when it comes to the Dirty Dozen, I think that's really where you want to put your emphasis if you're kind of, maybe a little bit of a price-conscious shopper, go to the website EWG.org that represents the Environmental Workmen's Group. This is one of my favorite websites. So bookmark it once you get on that page, because it not only highlights the dirty dozen. So these are the fruits and vegetables that are the highest in pesticides and residues. Things like strawberries.
I have the list right here.
Oh, great. Read it, yeah.
Apples, bell peppers, blueberries, domestic, celery, cucumbers, grapes, lettuce, imported nectarines, peaches, potatoes, spinach, and strawberries.
Thank you. And that list changes every year, depending on the crops and things like that. So they do a lot of research. There's also what's called the Clean 15, which means these have the least likely chance of having any type of pesticide residue or
That's on me.
anything.
I have
You want to
that
read
here.
that? Go ahead.
Asparagus, avocado, cabbage, cantaloupe, corn, eggplant, grapefruit, kiwi, mangoes, mushrooms, surprisingly, onions, pineapples, sweet peas, sweet potatoes, and watermelon.
Yes. So I stick pretty close to that list. You know, it kind of, yeah, the ones that are good to buy organic because they're part of the Dirty Dozen list. So you want to make sure you buy them organic. And the Clean 15, you can buy conventional.
Except that didn't take into account GMOs. So corn is on that Clean 15. Corn is not all corn right now. In the United States, unless it's organic, is GMO. All.
Yeah, so that does not take into account
So,
GMOs, right?
and also, in terms of organics, two things. Well, first of all, I had my first organic garden in 1969. Okay, so I've been knowing
For a while,
about
right.
We have Food Thought, which is spectacular.
Where is that?
Yeah, across the street.
Is in between, okay, if you know where Fridays is and Panera, right in the middle. It is Food Thought. And as good as Whole Foods is, and I love Whole Foods, I mean, right here is Food Thought. The others, I just read an article that Walmart is about to become the biggest carrier of organic food in the United States.
Great.
Well, the catch on it was that if in fact that were to happen, there are not right now enough organic producers to actually be able to supply them. So it's not that it's not their intention, it's that I don't know how they're going to do that. And if they were to do that they would be able to keep prices lower. And, you know, Walmart is big enough that maybe they can sort of subsidize some new organic growth. I mean, I don't know, that was just a little
Wow,
so I think there's hope. In general, I think that, although I'm going to look that up and have a copy of that in my little world, you know, I think that where things have crevices, like raspberries and strawberries and furry things like peaches and, you know, they hold pesticides because there's no place for them to go. They're harder to rinse away in the rain. So I think that's sort of just an easy, you don't have your little list, you know. And I'll let you finish the organics.
Oh, no, that was just wrapping it up. So the EWG.org website is nice because they also have a cosmetic database. So if you're concerned about what might be harbored in those creams and lotions and makeup that also have toxic chemicals that absorb into your bloodstream and affect your actual hormones in your body, sunscreens being another one. Since we're in Florida, we slather it on our skin. Don't you ever think you're slathering this chemical on your skin every single day? Don't you want to make sure it's something that's not harmful to your body? So that is something else I'd visit on that website. They also have a link into your fish. So if you do incorporate a lot of fish into your diet, make sure you're getting fish that's not high in mercury and PCP and whatnot. So very good website.
Can I ask you, what's your view on these capsules, fish oils to take?
You just want to make sure it's coming from fish that are not like farm-raised salmon, for example, which might be higher in mercury. There is a website you can visit called consumerlab.com. If you are one that takes a lot of supplements, it's highly worth your time to go to this website, consumerlab.com. What they do is they do independent studies and testing of the supplement industry. They're the only organized organization that does this. It's not for profit. The USDA and FDA do not do this. They do not regulate our supplement industry. So you can type in the brand that you use, the type of omega supplement that you use, and they will likely have tested it and it will tell you how pure it is, how much actual substance is in that supplement, so you know if you're getting a viable product. And it's interesting because I get emails from there every once in a while like, oh, we just red flagged a company that now is tainted with mercury or lead or says it has this potency and really it contains nothing. It's fascinating. I mean, this whole billion-dollar industry of the supplement world is scary. And I'll tell you, yes.
Why I'm mentioning fish oil, because I've never taken supplements, but I've just got over, or getting over, a very bad back problem. And the doctor said to me, go onto fish oil every day, take the capsules, and that will help you. So I just wanted to know if anyone's ever taken fish oil.
My husband takes fish oil, but they're prescriptions,
Yeah.
not over the counter.
Right.
Because the ones over the counters, you don't really know if they have mercury or they've been tainted. So you need to really have a prescription.
Yeah, it can come rancid. That's why I say food first. You can get omega-3s from almonds and walnuts, chia seeds, if you're looking plant-based. You can get it from salmon or other
Wild
types of...
salmon.
Yeah, wild salmon's good.
You wouldn't believe it. What about chocolate? We all love.
Lots of antioxidants in chocolate. However, the portion... Hey, kids! You guys! You're eating your fruits and veggies, right? The chocolate's good in a portion no larger than 50 calories, which is like one little chunk. But it needs to be the dark chocolate, 70% calorie or lower.
Full disclosure, I've had the benefit of hearing Betsy before, and one thing that you commented, I made a very definite change when I go out to eat. I used to always order fish. I would think, oh, that was always the best thing to order. But Betsy pointed out to me that you can't order sauteed products. So when I go to a restaurant now, if there's a choice between having fish that's sauteed or having something grilled, I always choose the grilled thing now. And I had never thought of that before. I always thought I was doing the right thing. Oh, fish is so much lower in calories, and that is...
Not when it's fried in oil.
Before I go out to a restaurant, I go on the website and I look at the menu and I know before I go there what I'm going to order.
Very good.
I have a
Be
question.
prepared.
I have a question that told me to say, what kinds of foods would trigger your metabolism to accelerate so you can lose weight?
There's not a magic food that will stimulate your metabolism. It's more lifestyle that helps the metabolism. So it's one, getting enough sleep, emphasizing that. I cannot stress the importance of sleep. There's a lot of studies that are now being done about sleep and how it's related to your weight and all that. I'm like, gosh, I've known that for years. Don't you just feel better when you get more sleep? But when you sleep, that's when your whole body and your metabolism are recovering. So your body needs that healing process in the evening time. So that's one great way. Another one is making sure your body is very well hydrated. So sleep and hydration, two of the top most important things that you should incorporate in your lifestyle. Another one is making sure that you are not starving yourself during the day, that actually a smaller, more frequent meals is sometimes, I shouldn't say always, but sometimes the most beneficial way of eating for individuals, just to keep your metabolism going through the day, so not long spells of not eating or skipping meals. The most important one increasing your metabolism is this guy. Increasing your muscle mass in your body. For every pound of muscle that you gain in your body, you now burn an additional 50 calories to support that 1 pound of muscle gain. So just think, if you gain 3 pounds of muscles, you're now burning 150 more calories than you were if you were not to gain more muscle mass. That's the best way to increase your muscle. Why a lot of people, when they do bad diets and they quickly lose weight, and then they gain it back plus some, do you know why that happens? Is because when you lose weight so quickly, it's not always fat that they lose. A lot of times they lose a lot of muscle and water. So now their body's naturally burning less calories, but then when they go back to their normal way of eating and they eat more calories, they gain weight, well, now their body cannot burn off because the metabolism is now depressed. So that's one very important way to kind of revamp your metabolism, is just to start a muscle weight training routine and start building some muscle and strength back up.
I wanted to
No,
just-
Magic Phil.
I wanted to just ask you that with the GMO stuff. Is there anything that you've heard, anything with the government having to disclose all of this?
I
I
know
know you
there's,
said the
I
Whole
know
Foods
there's
is gonna at a certain
right.
point do it, but
They're
what about the
lobbying it. There's a
government?
lot of people out there lobbying it, and it's a big fight because that's like a whole overhaul in the way things are done right now, and that's a lot of money that'll have to go into that. I think the movement's starting smaller with activists, and a big step with Whole Foods. When Whole Foods decided to go GMO free, I think they were kind of setting the benchmark, and I'm thinking more smaller companies might follow suit because Whole Foods did it, but I don't see it happening in the future. I would love to see it happen, but is it going to happen here in the next couple of years? The government lobby. It's
So how are they gonna know what's GMO if nothing's posted?
well, I have a food company, so I'm just now learning how all of this works, and our product's GMO free. There's a lot of paperwork you have to go through. It takes almost a whole year to get certified GMO free, but they actually spot check every ingredient that is in your product, has to have a statement behind it saying it's coming from a GMO-free source. So for example, honey is in our product. Now how do you regulate the bees and where they're pollinating, right? So we have to find a honey source that the honeybees actually feed off of an organic farm or within a radius that does not use any GMO products. You know, so they're very stringent. GMO people, so they're making sure that the products are GMO free.
There's a lot of wonderful information, and you mentioned some of the real pitfalls. That the one that you didn't talk about that I just am curious about your opinion on is farm-raised chicken. You know, Ellen said that she doesn't eat fish because she's worried about sodium, and she'll eat grilled. But to go from a fish that's sautéed in butter and salt to a commercially raised chicken brought me to a point of wonder.
Yeah.
Because this is very calorie, it's not carb conscious, it's calorie conscious. And anyway, I wanted some fullness in
Well,
that.
and not so much calorie conscious. I'm more of the sense of ingredient conscious.
Well, this
your
all
source
says
from.
calories.
Right,
There's
well,
a lot
on
of
that-
reference to
Oh, I see
calories,
what you're
but
saying,
there's
yes.
no reference to high carb, high, fat, you know what I mean? So I was, but you did mention all these like really important things to stay away from. And so anyway, chicken.
I don't think an emphasis anymore should be put on so much of how many carbs does it have, how many grams of fat. I mean, it's important, guidelines to know. I think it's more important the quality of the food that you're eating. And it's a good thing you bring that up because, yes, a commercial raised chicken is going to have a much different nutrient profile and health benefit than a free-range wild, or the grass-fed cattle, organic cattle, tastes much different and much healthier than something that's more grain-based. So even the fish, getting the wild fish as opposed to a lot of the farm-raised fish, are going to have more of the natural omega-3s and a much healthier profile for our body in regards to the nutrients in that flesh itself. So I mean, that is definitely something to emphasize. That's what I'm saying. When you look at the products, don't just look at the nutrition label, which is important, but you want to look at the ingredients. You want to know where the food's coming from. Maybe even start, if it's a food that you buy all the time, research the company behind it. Because I've learned a whole lot going into the food world. And I don't trust any of them. That's why I developed my own product, because I just don't trust what's out there. And you just got to be very, very careful about learning about your foods and where it comes from.
Icky, may I ask Icky about a kosher chicken? What about a kosher chicken? How is it raised?
There are many different, the kosher doesn't show about how it's raised and all. You can get it.
But when you go into a store and you want to buy a kosher chicken, there's only one thing in this town to buy, and that's an Empire.
There are other options actually in Whole Foods.
Yeah, but how do you know? How do you know which is okay and which isn't?
You gotta read it.
So what food are you manufacturing? Right now, my first launch is a nut and seed butter called Betsy's Best. You can find me at the farmer's market over on Vanderbilt Airport on Saturday mornings. So it's an almond butter, so you can switch to almond butter from almonds. Peanut butter and a sunflower seed butter. All of them have chia seeds in them, organic honey, kept all the ingredients natural. I'm very particular about the ingredients I selected for my product. One, it tastes delicious, but two, it's extremely healthy for you.
It's organic?
It's not organic. I want it to be organic. We just can't do it right now, being a small company starting into this food line. It's going to change over, trust me. It's not gonna.
Think about certifying kosher.
Yes, and you know what? Our problem is the company that's packaging for us is not kosher certified at this point. So when we get bigger, this is the problem with being a small guy in a big pool. These companies don't want to work with the small people. Until we become established, then we can be picky and choosy about who we go to and how we can
So
change it.
what's the uses for that? I mean, is that to replace butter?
It's peanut. It's like a peanut almond butter. I put it on apples, celery. I use it as dressings. I mean, you can do anything with a nut butter besides just sandwiches. But my whole line of products is going to be functional food based. So I'm going to do kale chips, chia puddings, buckwheat, gluten-free granolas. I mean, whole healthy snack line. Fun, functional foods.
I have a question. I've been reading about oils, cooking oils. Before, canola used to be a good oil, vegetable. Now they're saying stay away from that. Start going with avocado oil,
Walnut
coconut
oil.
Why is that? Why is everything changing? Butter wasn't good, now it's good. Egg wasn't good, now it's good. Now 20 years later, they're gonna say, oh, you know what, canola wasn't so good.
That's right. That's the food world, and we just keep learning more and more about our food as every decade passes. We're learning new
But
things
what's so
about our
bad about
food.
canola oil all of a sudden?
Well, GMO. It's probably the number one
It's
thing.
Canada. I mean, that's what it means, Canada oil, canola oil. Why it's bad, I don't know, but I know it's bad.
Canola oil. I thought canola oil was
At one time, that's what they said to
Have
me.
enough products,
So
so
what-
they just put
what-
things
what
together,
is
so it's
that?
not a body
I use
oil.
olive oil.
Olive
For
oil.
everything?
Olive oil?
But you could have used flax oil on salads. You want to keep flax oil. I mean, all oils have different cooking temperatures too, so it might depend what oil you use. I don't use just one oil. I have a variety of them I use. Again, you don't want to get in the niche of doing the same thing over and over. So I might have an avocado oil that I might dress on a salad, or flax oil. I might use an olive oil or a coconut oil if I'm cooking. High temperatures might be a peanut oil, stuff like that. But you need to be careful to do too much oils and keep them on your shelves because they do go rancid. So you want to buy the smaller bottles and use them.
Betsy, we could listen to you all day.
I know, I was gonna say, I'm like, I'm way over my time. I'm so sorry. You're probably a starving. Thank you so much. Have my card. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to